So dear Prefect Sacconi, dear Mayor of the City of Torino, Chiara Pendino, authorities, dear Deputy Rector, dear Dean of the College of Computer Engineering, dear heads of the departments of Electronics and Communication and of Control and Computer Engineering, ladies and gentlemen, especially dear Professor Shankar Sastry and dear Dr. Tom Siebel, it's a distinguished pleasure to welcome you to this ceremony for conferring the honorary degree in Telecommunications Engineering on Professor Shankar Sastry and the honorary degree in Computer Engineering on Dr. Thomas Siebel. I would also like to welcome you to the historical site of our university in this beautiful castle that was donated to the Politecnico di Torino in 1859 when our university was established, and it is now the center of our campus of the School of Architecture. Dear Shankar, this is also the place where your father graduated after the Second World War in 1955. It's a great pleasure that you are here. As you know, our Minister of Education, University and Research, Valeria Fedeli, was expected and she was willing to participate in this ceremony to express her congratulations to Professor Shankar Sastry and Mr. Thomas Siebel for their outstanding professional careers and their extraordinary contributions to the development of science and technology, and at the same time to express a closeness and attention to our university. Unfortunately, her presence is requested in Rome for some emerging and unexpected duties that cannot be postponed. So she apologizes for missing this ceremony and asked me to read a message at the end of the ceremony that she would like to deliver to Professor Shankar Sastry and to Mr. Thomas Siebel and also to our university community. Now, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, I would like to illustrate very briefly the reasons I think this is a special occasion and also a great opportunity for our university, and as you will see from the message of the Minister of Education, also an opportunity for the entire university systems. Let me start from a general consideration. As we discussed during the 3G7 meeting that we have in Torino, we already mentioned yesterday, industry and ICT, science and technology, and labor that were held in September, we are now facing a real industrial production revolution driven by the emergence of disruptive technologies that are essentially based on the availability of an enormous quantity of data and the necessity of analyzing these data that are generated by billions of connected objects that are more and more intelligent. So we know that digital technologies, machine learning, and artificial intelligence will have a tremendous impact on the society, but a tremendous impact on our life. And there will be, of course, considerable benefits for the society, but probably as a result, part of the intellectual work will be replaced by machines. And the challenge of a university, but the challenge for policymakers is to understand the new paradigm of man-machine collaboration and to promote policies to make this new form of interaction beneficial for people and for the society. emerging technologies from additive manufacturing. Yesterday, we had the privilege to visit our lab in additive manufacturing, to robotics, from artificial intelligence to blockchain technologies, from neural technologies to synthetic biology. Those emerging technologies require a multidisciplinary and transversal approach. And as a consequence, we discussed yesterday new paradigms for research, organization, and educations will be required. The challenge is to create multidisciplinary international centers by promoting and fostering knowledge sharing among universities, research institutions, large and small companies, and startups. And the overall challenge is, at the end, to promote policies, especially in this country, for reducing gaps and increase sustainability and emerging technological paradigms from a social, cultural, and economical point of view. So, based on these preliminary and general considerations, I believe that there are at least two main reasons that make this event an important appointment for our university, but also an important appointment for our territory, and I would say also an important appointment for the university system. Well, the first reason is the following. While we were facing this technology transition, technology revolution, as one of the research and higher education institution in Italy, in 2015, we were proposed by Dr. Tom Siebel and Professor Shankar Sastry to join the Siebel Energy Institute. The Siebel Energy Institute is a global consortium for innovative, collaborative research in advanced technologies, and is specifically focused on the applications of advanced digital technologies, including statistical analysis, machine learning, to energy systems and IoT systems. The institute is chaired by Tom Siebel, and the director is Professor Shankar Sastry, and this composed by top-ranked research universities. Some of the representatives of these universities are here. I would like to thank them for being here in our place, including UC Berkeley, of course, MIT, Princeton, Carnegie Mellon, the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, the École Polytechnique, and in Asia, the University of Tokyo and Tsinghua University. And together with another program which is funded by the Siebel Foundation, the Siebel Scholar Program, already involving more than 1,000 PhD students, we think that this is an excellent framework for promoting interdisciplinary research in the most exciting and disruptive technology field, and also a great opportunity to attract talented students and researchers in our institutions. The second reason, of course, we think this is a great occasion for our university is the outstanding profile of our two candidates. They have given an extraordinary contribution to the development of advanced information technology. Shankar Sastry is one of the most brilliant researchers in the field. Tom Siebel as an exceptional worldwide entrepreneurial leader. But in addition to their tremendous achievements in science and technology, they are also giving a great and exceptional contribution to study and to understand the societal impact of emerging technologies in order to make them more inclusive and sustainable. So I would like to thank the Department of Electronics and Communications and the Department of Control and Computer Engineering for proposing these honorary degrees, And I would like to thank the Minister of Education, University and Research for enthusiastically approving our proposal and conferring these degrees. Dear Shankar and Tom, it's a great honor to award you the laurea ad honorem, the honorary degree in telecommunications engineering and computer engineering. You are among the most distinguished graduates of our university in more than 150 years of history. Thank you. And now I would like to give the floor to the Deputy Rector, Professor Michela Meo, for the laudatio on Professor Shankar Sastry.
Thank you. Dear Mayor of the City of Torino, dear civilian and military authorities, dear Rector, dear Professor Shankar Sastry, distinguished colleagues from other universities, fellows from Politecnico di Torino, ladies and gentlemen, it's a great pleasure and also a great honor for me to hold this laudatio on the occasion of the laurea ad honorem conferred by the Politecnico di Torino on Professor Shankar Sastry, Dean and Roy Carlson Professor of Engineering, Director of the Bloom Center of Developing Economies, Professor of Electrical Engineering and Computer Sciences, Bioengineering and Mechanical Engineering at the University of California, Berkeley. I would now like to share with you the impressive research activity and professional career and the great personality of Professor Shankar Sastry. I have had the privilege to know Shankar in the framework of the Siebel Energy Institute, since he is a director and the chair of the advisory board of the Institute, and I am campus director of the Politecnico di Torino, a section of the Institute. From 2004 to 2007, he was a director of CITRIS, the Center for Information Technology in the Interests of Society, an interdisciplinary center spanning UC Berkeley, Davis, Mercedes, and Santa Cruz. He has served as chairman Department of Electrical Engineering and Computer Sciences in the University of California, Berkeley from January 2001 through June 2004. From 1999 to February 2001, he was the director of the Information Technology Office of the Defense Advanced Research Project Agency. Professor Sastry received his PhD degree in 1981 from the University of California, Berkeley. He was on the faculty of MIT as assistant professor from 1980 to 1982, and Harvard University as a chaired Gordon McKay professor in 1994. He has given extraordinary contributions to the development of information technologies, with outstanding and worldwide recognized achievements in the fields of nonlinear and adaptive control, autonomous robotic systems, in particular unmanned aerial vehicles, cybersecurity, resilient cyber-physical systems, mechanism design, and incentive theory for complex societal scale system networks, computer vision, nonlinear and adaptive control, control of hybrid and embedded systems. Most recently, he ran as PI at a 10-year NSF Science and Technology Center with multi-university partners named TRUST, Team for Research in Ubiquitous Secure Technologies, and its successor center, Forces, Foundations of Resilient Cyber-Physical Systems. He has co-authored over 500 technical papers and 10 books, which have had a wide diffusion and a great impact among the scientific community. Professor Sastry has been a fellow of the IEEE since 1994 and has served as associate editor for several publications, including IEEE Transactions on Automatic Control, IEEE Control Magazine, IEEE Transactions on Circuit and Systems, Journal of Mathematical Systems, Estimation and Control. He was elected into the National Academy of Engineering in 2001 and the American Academy of Arts and Sciences in 2004. He received the President of India Gold Medal in 1977, the IBM Faculty Development in 1983, the NSF Presidential Young Investigator Award in 1985, the Ekman Award of the American Automation Control Council in 1990, the Ragazzini Award for Distinguished Accomplishments in Teaching in 2005, an MA honoris causa from Harvard in 1994, the Distinguished Alumnus Award of the Indian Institute of Technology in 1999, an honorary PhD from the Royal Institute of Technology, Stockholm, and a PhD honoris causa from the University of Waterloo in Canada in 2016. He has been a member of the Air Force Scientific Advisory Board from 2002 to 2005, and the Defense Science Board in 2008, among other national boards. He is currently on the Scientific Advisory of the National Science Foundation, Engineering Directorate, and the United Nations Secretary General's Scientific Advisory Board, and the World Economic Forum Global Development Council. He is currently on the corporate boards of C3 IoT, HCL Technologies, and Lexmark Corporation. He is on the scientific advisory boards of Interwest LLC, Lockheed Martin, Axcom, Oticon. He has supervised over 65 doctoral students and over 50 master students to completion. His students occupy leadership roles on the faculties of many major universities in the US and abroad. So, distinguished rector, once all these facts have been considered and presented, I would like to formally ask that Professor Shankar Sastry could be awarded and conferred the laurea d'honorem in telecommunication engineering by the Politecnico di Torino. He is an ideal candidate because of his extraordinary research achievements in the field of nonlinear and adaptive control, autonomous robotic systems, and cyber-physical systems, and for his leading contributions to the studies of societal impact of information technologies as Dean of the College of Engineering of UC Berkeley, President of CITRIS, and member of a number of outstanding national and international boards. Thank you.
Thank you. And now I would like to give the floor to Professor Elena Baralis. She is the Dean of the College of Computer Engineering for the Laudatio on Dr. Thomas Siebel. Please.
Dear Mayor of the City of Torino, dear civilian and military authorities, dear Rector, dear Mr. Thomas Siebel, distinguished colleagues from other universities, fellows from the Politecnico di Torino, ladies and gentlemen, it is a great pleasure and also a great honor to hold this laudatio on the occasion of the laurea ad honorem conferred by the Politecnico di Torino on Thomas Siebel. I'm now going to deal with the difficult task to present the impressive professional career and the great personality of Mr. Thomas Siebel, whom we have had the privilege to know as a founder of the Siebel Energy Institute, an international consortium of top-ranked research universities focused on innovative and collaborative energy research for the public domain. Thomas Siebel is a graduate of the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, where he received a Bachelor of Arts in History, an MBA, and a Master of Science in Computer Science. He received an honorary PhD in engineering from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign in 2006. He was the founder, chairman, and chief executive officer of Siebel Systems, one of the world's leading software companies that merged with Oracle Corporation in January 2006. Founded in 1993, Siebel Systems rapidly became a leader in application software with more than 8,000 employees in 32 different countries, over 4,500 corporate customers, and annual revenue in excess of $2 billion. Mr. Siebel has driven forward the vision of customer relationship management. His company, Siebel Systems, has been a reference in customer satisfaction culture. Mr. Siebel is currently the chairman and chief executive officer of C3 IoT, an enterprise platform as a service and software as a service software company that enables companies to design, develop, deploy, provision, and operate large-scale IoT applications. C3 IoT applies the power of big data, advanced analytics, social networking, machine learning, and cloud computing to enable the rapid development of IoT software as a service systems. Mr. Siebel was able to envision and recognize the prominent role of industrial data analytics and facilitate their exploitation in a variety of application domains. Mr. Siebel is the founder and chairman of the Thomas and Stacy Siebel Foundation. Established in 1996, the foundation funds projects to support energy solutions, educational and research programs, public health, and the homeless and underprivileged. In 2015, the foundation launched the Siebel Energy Institute, a global consortium to foster research collaboration among premier universities and spur the greatest minds in engineering and computer science to address the most pressing energy challenges of our time. For his extraordinary achievements, Mr. Siebel has been the recipient of an impressive number of outstanding honors and awards. In 2013, the American Academy of Arts and Sciences elected Tom Siebel as a member along with some of the other world's most accomplished scholars, scientists, writers, artists, and civic, corporate, and philanthropic leaders. Since its founding in 1780, the Academy has elected leading thinkers and doers from each generation, including George Washington and Benjamin Franklin in the 18th century, and also Albert Einstein and Winston Churchill in the 20th. The current membership includes more than 250 Nobel laureates and more than 60 Pulitzer Prize winners. For his achievements as a technology entrepreneur and his contributions to national security, Mr. Siebel received the David Packard Award from the Business Executive for National Security in 2002 and was named one of the top 10 CEOs of 2000 by Investors Business Daily, one of the top 25 managers in the world by Business Week from 1999 to 2002, one of the top 25 executives by Computer Reseller News, and CEO of the Year by Industry Week in 2002, Master Entrepreneur of the Year by Ernst & Young in 2003, and one of the top 25 eco-innovators by Fortune magazine in 2014. Under Mr. Siebel's leadership, his company, Siebel Systems, was named the fastest growing company in America by Fortune and the fastest growing technology company in IT by Deloitte Touch in 1999, the most influential company in IT by Intelligent Enterprise, and the world's most influential software company by Business Week in 2000, the Entrepreneurial Company of the Year by the Harvard Business School in 2003. As a leader of C3 IoT, he received the Most Admired CEO Lifetime Achievement Award by San Francisco Business Times. In 2016, his company was named the Best Place to Work 100% CEO approval rating by Glassdoor in 2017. In 2010, he was the recipient of the Woodrow Wilson Award for Corporate Citizenship, given by the Woodrow Wilson International Center for Scholars of the Smithsonian Institution. Finally, it is worth mentioning the extraordinary activity of the Siebel Foundation in supporting homeless and underprivileged, methamphetamine abuse prevention, educational and research programs, and innovative energy solutions. In 2000, the Foundation established the Siebel Scholar Program to recognize the most talented students at the world's leading graduate schools of business, computer science, bioengineering, and energy science. Our university had the privilege to join the program in 2015. Each year, more than 90 graduate students at the top of their class are selected during their final year of studies based on outstanding academic performance and leadership to receive an award towards their final year of studies. Today, an active community of over 1,100 Siebel scholars serves as advisors to the Siebel Foundation and works collaboratively to find solutions to society's most pressing problems. As a recognition of his outstanding philanthropic activity, Mr. Siebel was awarded a White House commendation by the Office of National Drug Control Policy for the most influential drug program, and a leadership award by the Federal Bureau of Investigation in 2006. He was named among the top 50 philanthropists by Business Week in 2007 and 2008, and number 3 of the world's top 25 philanthropists by Barrows in 2010. So, distinguished director, once all these facts have been considered and presented, I would like to formally ask that Mr. Thomas Siebel could be awarded and conferred the laurea ad honorem in computer engineering, Ingegneria Informatica, by the Politecnico di Torino. He is an ideal candidate because of his worldwide leadership in advanced information technology as founder of and CEO of the Siebel Systems and C3 IoT, and his extraordinary contributions to the development of science and technology through the Siebel Foundation, the Siebel Scholar Program, and the Siebel Energy Institute.
Thank you. And now I would like to invite Professor Shankar Sastry to give his Lectio Magistralis, please.
Thank you very much. I will give my lecture in English, but if you will permit me my little bit schoolboy Italian, I would like to say. Volevo dire che per me è un giorno molto speciale. Mio papà ha studiato qui in anno 55. È dovuto scappare dall'India per motivo di essere accusato di essere comunista in India. Così è arrivato qui per studiare ingegneria meccanica e poi ha lavorato per Fiat. È tornato in India in 56 anche per lavorare per Fiat in India. In 56 c'era ancora Fiat in India. Così per me è veramente... Lui ha studiato proprio in questo palazzo, il Palazzo di Valentino, e c'era anche un posto per i gesuiti dove è vissuto, proprio vicino a questo parco di Valentino. Forse c'è ancora questo albergo, questo castello. Ma proprio per me è molto, molto prezioso. Grazie mille per tutto. E solo un'altra cosa. Qui in Italia ci sono questi titoli un po' formali. Volevo prima salutare il sindaco, anche onorabile sindaco, anche il prefetto e tutte le altre società, ma anche volevo salutare il rettore magnifico di Politecnico, anche i presidi amplissimi, si dice, vero? E professori chiarissimi. Sempre volevo dire questo, dottore magnifico e chiarissimi professori e anche altri amici. Adesso torno in inglese. I just want to give you, and the translator said I have to speak slowly, so I will speak slowly, but I will go quickly. I think that the relationship with Politecnico di Torino that we have begun is a very special relationship, and it is founded really on the sense that today technology innovation is needed for solving the most pressing problems confronting society. So I just want to lead you through what that means. I think at a time when we say use-inspired technology and so on, we really mean that it is important to not only think of the technology, but social, legal, economic, and policy contexts for providing solutions for energy and environmental problems, for building the new infrastructure, for delivery of precision health care. And so it really moves away from this dichotomy between pure and applied research. It's really use-inspired basic research. An example, I give you a few examples, and that's how I will, we were talking with the mayor before about Industry 4.0, and really what we see is a fusion of computing and communication. So communication technologies are present in the IoT sensors. We have really succeeded in instrumenting the world. Everything is a computer. Actually, when Tom was speaking yesterday, I was reminded that Andy Grove, who was the CEO of Intel, reminded me that when he was designing the microprocessor, he had one set of people who were trying to make calculators with more fancy processors, and then another engineer at Intel came and told him that he wanted to put a microprocessor in every single traffic light. So I think that really these sensors are everywhere. They're really everywhere. There are computers everywhere. And they're mostly wireless. On the other hand, the cloud computing infrastructure is wired, and we have to intermediate between them. And this produces So this class of systems that it produces are called cyber-physical systems with a cyber heart. And to me, these diagrams really, they bring together a set of very different core technologies which apply to many, many fields. And it is really transforming how we teach engineering. So this diagram is used both by the European Union and the National Science Foundation to justify, it's called a petal diagram, a flower petal diagram, to really justify the investment in these cyber-physical systems. A specific example of this, of course, is what is called the Industry 4.0 for manufacturing, the fog sensors, that's what Microsoft and Intel and Cisco call it, or swarms of sensors, which is the Qualcomm term for it. So we feel that these cyber-physical systems are really on a rapid growth. They're very changing how we live our lives. They're also changing the face of transportation. This is a city where transportation is very important. Transportation in the air, transportation on the ground, and we feel that it's all being transformed. I want to lead you through some examples of what this does. It means a place where data is suddenly a commodity. There are networks, traffic networks, communication networks, but the data has to be analyzed and sorted and then be provided to customers to be able to provide new services, the sharing economy, for instance, or conversion of transportation into a service, rather than selling cars, logistics into a service. An example, for instance, is in power systems. With smart meters, NL is the world's leading user of smart meters. It is possible to look at the outputs of smart meters and come up with the usage of which devices are being used, and this is referred to as disaggregation. It is possible to it's possible to look at the GPS signals of cell phones and tell where people are traveling. And this can be used, of course, to be able to do smart energy, smart grid solutions. It can be used to provide new parking solutions. It can be used to do congestion routing. But at the same time, it is also very important to see what it means to have access to this information. For example, from the smart meter information, this is a picture from the Department of Energy, which shows that, in fact, you can tell from the smart meter readings the level of household income, the level of occupancy of a house. In Los Angeles, some criminal gangs have been found which plan break-ins based on the level of occupancy if nobody is at home. So these questions are very complicated questions to answer. Our point of view is that it can price privacy the way you price other things. When you go to a doctor, you release information about yourself in the expectation of service. You release information about smart meters in expectation of better service. However, when the utility offers services which are based on these levels of services, they actually can cause issues which are relevant to social justice. Just like congestion pricing on the roads can be viewed as, can have some implications as a regressive tax, this too can have some implications for people asking for low privacy settings. Free ride, which means they get free benefits from their settings. And this is the subject of the last 3 Nobel Prizes in economics. So it's a place where the design of mechanisms is really critical, not only to provide privacy guarantees, but also to be able to provide society with the kinds of services that are equitable. Let me lead you through one very simple example. This is it's something that we are all familiar with, which is the use of maps, road traffic maps on phones. A colleague of mine called Alex Bayen, 10 years ago, began a project with Nokia on using cell phones to be able to predict traffic, the data from some cell phones. And that in turn, of course, now is Google Maps, Waze, these are all things that we do. So in the beginning, I'll tell you the story in Los Angeles and the societal issues. People thought that all these traffic apps helped. So the mayor of Los Angeles said, Waze will reduce congestion. Then more people started using it, and people started using by roads. And they were not so happy. Then people said, aha, Waze is causing trouble. And, then the citizens started to resist. They put detour signs. Then, of course, neighborhoods and cities start to resist. And of course, there are many elected officials here. There's no real policy about how it is that human behavior reacting to these actually can have several implications. And in fact, these implications may not be the implications that you want. Quiet city streets suddenly become busy. The question about who pays for the maintenance is an important one. So it is up to us to ask the right questions and to help policymakers decide how to provide policy solutions and regulations to build this new technology into our systems. Of course, you've heard this word big data. Certainly, big data, machine learning are a very large part of this solution, but it is much more than that. You will see, and Professor Siebel will give a wonderful talk later about really the economic impact of this big data and IoT. It is totally spectacular. It is really likely to affect every sector that we deal with. But for us, we have to architect these societal scale infrastructure systems. And it is really fortunate to be in a school of architecture to be able to say that we have to teach our students how to design these smart city solutions. How do you design the architectural solutions which build in this new technology? For example, certainly when you talk about smart cities, you have to think about urban mobility, air transport. Now with drones, Drones will very much be part of the urban ecosystem. The question of how you use airspace for drones, how do you provide right-of-way for drones above airspaces is a critical one. An example, due to Claire Tomlin, as my colleague, is on how you might be able to use platoons of UAVs as delivery. As you know, several companies, Amazon and so on, are already thinking of using drones to deliver. And how do you platoon them, which means you send them in the same altitude, possibly over highways, over railway lines, which is traditionally, by the way, also the way that the internet expanded, by the right-of-way along the railway lines. So these are very, very important issues. Finally, I would like to conclude with, and so the story is really, there's economics, there's human behavior, how does human behavior change when there's automation? But let me focus a little bit more on human beings and automation. How do you embed humans in automation? You know, it is getting to be more and more critical that humans work with robots. It used to be that robots did things which were called dull, dirty, or dangerous. But nowadays, humans and robots are doing the same things. They are working together. And so the question is, how do you start having models? Here's a set of examples that I did with some of my students on trying to determine automated driving. So here, the gold car is a human-driven car. The gold car is an automated car, and the white car is a human-driven car. When it changes lanes, we as human beings quite often want to put our nose in to see what the driver will do. And then if the driver slows down, then you enter. If the driver speeds up, you come back. So can you build in these? And the answer is, with these new techniques of machine learning, you certainly can do that. You can build in these interfaces where you learn the characteristics, whether it's an aggressive driver, whether it's a passive driver, and to be able to make either the human being slow down or the robotic car slow down in order to do this. Another more spectacular example of this is, again, the gold car is an automated car, the white car is a human-driven car. You can build in models so that when they reach the intersection, the robotic car, if it wants to give right of way, can be automatically programmed to back up a little bit so as to indicate to the human driver to go ahead. And these are all things that you can build in through these machine learning algorithms. But these are examples of where you're really trying to understand the utility of the human being and really to try to provide trade-offs between human behavior and robotic behavior. Let me conclude by talking a little bit more about humans and robots cooperating. So when humans and robots cooperate, it would be very nice if the human had a model of what the robot was doing and the robot had a model of what the human is doing. But this could be recursive because maybe the human also has a model of the robot has a model of the human, and how far do you go? We tried to understand how a human and a robot, this is one robot and the other thing is a child's robot, you know, BB-8, the little Star Wars robot, collaborating to be able to solve a shortest path problem. The problem is that these things are known as traveling salesman problems, but the most efficient trajectory may not be the easiest one to understand. So it's something that's very important when you build an automated system. If you super optimize the robot, it may be hard for the human being to interface with it because efficiency can be ambiguous. So here's an example of somebody who's asked to cover these 4 nodes, and it's ambiguous as to which of those 2 trajectories are the ones. And that is a problem. And we started doing some experiments, and here are some videotapes of how this may go. I want to play the movie here. And this is a human trying to collaborate with the robot, which is trying to do the most efficient thing. But the BB-8 is trying to guide the robot. But if it is efficient, then it's ambiguous because it doesn't know where to go, and finally it runs into the robot. Whereas if it was the more predictable kind, then it's something that can be made to be much more predictable and it is something where the human being says, aha, I understand how it would steer the person. This is the human being steering the green robot, and the blue robot, the BB-8, is the automated robot. And then you compare this is really a study of psychophysics. But the psychophysics gives you a good sense of what one might do, and the completion rate is better. And the people's comments are that it's much more comfortable to work with a robot like this. And the comments here are that really the little guy seems to like me. That's what the people said. Finally, I say that as you go forward, we can really envision a time where there is a human intranet. There are devices. Even yesterday, when we were talking at the Siebel Energy Institute, a colleague of mine, Stefano, talked about worn sensors for really sensing the atmosphere around a person. So when you're doing that, you're really building a human intranet. And to be able to combine this human intranet with this world of sensors to come up with a way of sort of really having this human intranet and the data from this human intranet be used to really combine human performance and robotic performance is upon us. It has a fantastic potential, but there are many, many points that we have to address a lot in between. It's about how humans interact with it and how the robots go forward. So let me conclude by saying that in our partnership that we have begun here in Torino, I feel that our goals are really not so modest. They're really what's at stake here is to be able to invent the future, to really make the future something, a place that we want to live in, to have the values that we hold dear. And suddenly, for technologists now, it's a question of building humanistic values and also to have interfaces with so many of the social sciences and to do so while creating entrepreneurial solutions. So I thank you very much for your attention, and I thank you very much for the great honor.
Thank you, Shankar, for this excellent lecture. And now it's my pleasure to invite Dr. Tom Siebel to give his Lectio Magistralis, please.
Dear Il Rectore Magnifico Gili, dear Mayor Appendito, dear Prefecta Sacconi, distinguished guests, I stand before you overwhelmed by humility, and I begin this address with the greatest sense of trepidation. I want to talk a little bit about where information technology has come and where I think information technology is going and how information technology has impacted our lives and how it will impact our lives going forward. And I think we can take a lesson from looking in geologic time and take a lesson perhaps out of evolutionary biology. And as we go back to one of the famous and perhaps first scientists, Charles Darwin, when he wrote On the Origin of Species in 1859, and he talked about the speciation of the planet. And he thought that in his concept of evolution, and he considered evolution, speciation, to be a continuous process, okay? A constant change of mutation and kind of a continuous process. But the problem was that he was unable to explain the gaps in the fossil records. And it wasn't until over 100 years later, in 1972, that an evolutionary biologist by the name of Stephen Gould came up with this concept that he called punctuated equilibrium. And he proposed in his paper and in his book that speciation was in fact not continuous, but it was highly, that speciation happened from massively disruptive events, that we would have long periods of equilibrium and then massive disruptions in which everything was upended, and then it would reach another period of equilibrium. And so we think about this in geologic time. I think the planet has been around, planet Earth is around for maybe 6.5 billion years. There's been life on the planet for 3.5 billion years. And in the last 400 million years alone, there have been 5 major extinction events. And so we have, 400 million years ago, you had glaciation, and 86% of the species on Earth disappeared. Say 200 million years ago, you had an extinction event, mass extinction event, where 96% of the species on Earth disappeared. Most recently, 65 million years ago, we have the KT extinction, with which everyone here, I think, is familiar, when this meteor hit the Yucatan, and then we have massive volcanic eruption going on at global scale, and 76% of the species on Earth disappear. And one of the species that disappeared were the dinosaurs. The dinosaurs had been extraordinarily successful. They had been on the planet for order of 150 million years. And now, when these extinction events occurred, the voids of the ecosystem, then this was followed by mass respeciation, where we have these new species with new DNA that fill these voids. In the case of the dinosaurs, this void was filled by the mammals. And, so that turned out to be, worked out pretty well for us. Now, to tarnish a phrase by Thomas Kuhn, we can look at, they talk about the structure of technology revolutions. And so when we think about the structure, when we think about the impact of technology with social systems, we've had, throughout history, we've had, relatively stable social and political situations that were then collided with significant technological discoveries that changed everything, whether it was the discovery of fire, agriculture, the domestication of dogs, the Gutenberg press, the transistor. I mean, all of these had, how about the steam engine, the Jacquard loom. I mean, how these were, massively disruptive events where we had long periods of equilibrium and then mass disruption where everything kind of changes, and changes in some very positive ways, but also changed with all of these events in some very negative ways. So let's look at the information age. There was a sociologist at Harvard by the name of Daniel Bell. He was a Marxist sociologist, a very famous guy. And in 1973, this is the thing of 1973, this is before the mini computer, before the personal computer, before the internet, before the cell phone, if you can imagine that. This guy, Daniel Bell, theorized that the global economy was about to go through a disruption on the order of the Industrial Revolution associated with information, where data, the availability of data, the accuracy of data, and the timeliness of data would become the most valuable resource. And he hypothesized that this would change. He coined the term, the post-industrial society. He coined the phrase, the information age. He coined the phrase, the information worker. And he theorized that this technology would change everything about the way we communicate, about the way we work, about the way that we recreate, and change our lives and result in a restructuring of the global economy to this thing that we know about today called the information age. So now we have Moore's Law. And everything that he predicted became true. And we all know about Moore's Law, so I won't talk about that, the impact of this. But the effect of Moore's Law has been the development of this, information economy, which today is a $2 trillion global business. And we have gone from mainframe computing to mini computing to personal computing to internet computing. And it's changed everything. And it has brought lots of good. People are healthier, people are happier, people live longer, people are more productive. There has been economic growth at global scale. As we power into the 21st century, we have a new step function of technologies that are coming online that are massively disruptive. The first is elastic cloud computing. These are brought to market by companies like Amazon Web Services, Microsoft with Azure, Google with the cloud. This brings computing power available to everybody in this room, to everybody in the world, okay, that is massively scalable, and the scale of which would be unimaginable as of, say, the beginning of this century, where an individual can have immediate access to tens of thousands of computers and infinite storage capacity. This phenomenon of big data, which is very important. People think big data is about the size of the data, but this is not what it's about. It's not about the fact that, that a terabyte is more than a megabyte. Big data fundamentally changes everything about computing. This is due to the limitations of computer processors and storage. Historically, we have performed computation on sample sets. And then we have used statistics to infer conclusions from the calculations that were made on those sample sets. With big data, it's not so important how large it is. The point is, there is no sampling error. We have all the data about whatever the system might be, the human system, the grid, the power system, the healthcare system, whatever it might be. We have all of the data. When you combine that with infinite computing and storage capacity, you can solve problems that were never solvable before, and you go about computing in a completely different way. And so this enables this era of AI. Well, AI there's been a lot of talk about this for 50 years, going back to even longer than 50 years, I would say, with Marvin Minsky at MIT, which would have been when order of, say, 1968, I think. And we've had a nuclear winter for an AI winter, okay, for 50 years where nothing has happened. Well, all of a sudden, this is exploding. Due to elastic cloud computing and big data, we can solve problems that were never solved before. And so then the last vector that we have is this phenomenon called Internet of Things. And this is by far the most significant. So the Internet of Things, we think about this as the censoring of value chains: travel, transportation, healthcare, automotive, aerospace. And I've given this a lot of thought, and we think about censoring these value chains so that all the devices in the value chains become remotely machine addressable. I think that's not really it. Okay, the Internet of Things is about a change in the form factor of computers. So we used to say in the middle of the last century, before the middle of the last century, computers were large electromechanical devices, and they might have been at MIT, and they had gears and wheels and levers, and every now and then, the gears would stop, and somebody would go find out why the gear was stuck, and they'd take a cockroach out of the computer so the gear could keep going. Well, this was called debugging a computer. True story. Okay. And then we had places like the University of Pennsylvania, large computers made with vacuum tubes, then affordable mainframe computers, then mini computers, then this personal computer that you have in your pocket that represents $1 billion in 1970 computing power. What the Internet of Things is all about is, going forward, everything is a computer. Your watch, your car, your refrigerator, your pool pump, your eyeglasses, your heart monitor, even the pill that you take every day for high blood pressure soon will be a computer. Now, there was a scientist at Xerox PARC by the name of Bob Metcalfe. He invented this thing called Ethernet. Turned out to be pretty useful, and he discovered that if you connect these computers together into networks, They're much more powerful than the sum of the parts. And he coined this term called Metcalfe's law. And Metcalfe's law says that the power of the network is a function of the square of the number of nodes. Well, again, so far this century, we've deployed 19 billion IoT devices across the value chains of travel, transportation, oil and gas, utilities, what have you. Within 5 years, this will be 50 billion devices. These are computers that are fully connected by the internet. 50 billion squared, ladies and gentlemen, is a big number. This is order of 10 to the 22nd. This is a computing platform that, again, was unimaginable even as recently as the beginning of this century. And it allows us to solve problems that we couldn't even think about solving before. And these problems are, so if we look at the confluence of these technologies, this is, at the point of clouds, this is where you get this phenomenon that is becoming, increasingly frequent in academia, in the boardroom, in government discussions, in defense discussions, in intelligence discussions, and this is this phenomenon of digital transformation. Well, this is where it happens, where these vectors collide. And so if we were to look at what's going on here, the cost of computing is going down to zero due to the cloud. Computing and storage are becoming free. The growth in data is growing exponentially. Soon, 90% of corporate government data will be stored in this cloud. According to the McKinsey Global Institute, by 2026, which is a blink of an eye, we'll have 1 trillion objects fully connected to the internet. 1 trillion. And then McKinsey estimates that corporations and governments will be creating between $5 trillion and $11 trillion in value by 2025 from these systems. I mean, $11 trillion, this is a big number. I think the gross domestic product of the United States is order of 13 trillion. So this is pretty significant. And what happens? What do these systems do? We can deploy artificial intelligence predictive maintenance systems to identify devices that are going to fail before they fail, like Enel. Enel is one of the world's leading companies as it relates to smart energy. And they use predictive maintenance systems. They use AI to identify devices in their power infrastructure before they fail. What's the benefit? Okay, the lights don't go out in Turin. Okay, the lights don't go out in Rome. This is a good thing. Digital oil fields, smart grid analytics. Again, Enel, by far the world's leader in this, Francisco Spiraci and Livio Gallo. Smart cities, healthcare analytics. This will be the biggest field of all, okay, in terms of precision health. Autonomous vehicles, aerospace, supply chain optimization to discrete manufacturing, next generation of retail. It's all about big data, AI, and IoT. And so as this market has evolved, in the last, say, 30 years, the information technology business has gone from, say, order of $200 billion business to $2 trillion. Okay, it's expected by 2025, this will be an $8 trillion market, so the growth is accelerating. But as we brought all these technologies to market, whether it was mini computing, personal computing, the internet, enterprise application software, CRM systems, these were always brought to the attention of a CIO. Okay, and the CIO reported to Chief Information Officer, who reported to the CEO, or reported to the mayor, or reported to the president. And the Chief Information Officer was responsible for technology selection. And invariably, the person would, whatever the technology was, he or she would say no. We're never going to use a mini computer. We're never going to use a personal computer. We're never going to use the internet. We're never going to use relational database technology. Or even better, we're going to build it ourselves. Okay, so fine. I was on some of those sales calls, and what you would do is you just wait for that CIO to get fired, and you'd come back 2 years later, and they adopted the technology. And this is how the business evolved from, say, 1980 until about 2010. Now, all of a sudden, things have changed, with this phenomena of digital transformation and these technologies that I've talked to you about. All of a sudden, the CEO is at the table, And the CEO is mandating this thing called digital transformation. What is this? You want to ask, and this is happening at Boeing, it's happening at Airbus, it's happening at Nel, it's happening at Engie, it's happening at Royal Dutch Shell, it's happening at the United States Air Force, Department of Defense, the Central Intelligence Agency. Every one of these organizations, the CEO is there mandating digital transformation. Where did the CEO come from? The CEO has never been here before. And someone asks, how does this happen? Well, what we're seeing in the corporate world this century is a mass extinction event. Okay? In the last 16 years, okay, in the last 17 years, 52% of the Fortune 500 companies have disappeared from the planet. They've gone bankrupt, they've been merged, and they're just gone. Okay? Think of these names that were household names all around the world not too long ago. How about Kodak? How about Xerox? How about Westinghouse? Where are they? They're gone. Okay? And experts like John Chambers predict that of the companies that are remaining, 70% of those will disappear within 10 years. There is a mass extinction event going on in corporate America. And you see what is going on. So it's really quite dramatic what is happening here. Bank One, Sun Microsystems, Kmart, Compaq Computer, Toys R Us, gone. Look at General Electric may be gone tomorrow. IBM could be gone. So this is really quite significant. And in their place, we have these companies with new DNA that are emerging. Okay, companies like, companies like Google, companies like Amazon, companies like Tesla. What is Tesla? Tesla is big data, predictive analytics, and IoT on wheels, right? And I don't know what the future of Tesla will be, but it is most certainly going to disrupt the automotive industry worldwide. And Tesla, with 1/20th of the revenue of General Motors, has a greater market cap. Or Amazon, how important is that? I mean, this is a company that is completely using AI, IoT, and cloud computing to completely disrupt retailing. And if you are, say, Walmart, looking down the barrel at Amazon coming at you, you're in a world of hurt. I mean, Walmart could go extinct. And, here you have Amazon with, I think, 1/5 of the sales of Amazon, 1/5 of the sales of Walmart, with substantially greater market cap. And Uber, what's Uber? They have no cars, no drivers, and they're completely disrupting the transportation industry globally. We have these, just like we have new species with new DNA, we have new companies with new DNA, and they're filling these voids in the ecosystem that are in response to this mass extinction event. And we see a massive corporate and government response to this. Go on the internet. I would encourage you to read and look up, read the 13th five-year plan, okay, from China. Okay, it is all about the Internet of Things. It is all about the Internet of Energy. It's a treatise on the Internet of Things and the Internet of Energy. You have Industry 4.0, which is this consortium coming out of Germany, which is all about candidly making Germany preeminent in this field. So this is, kind of dominating the discussion in government. It's dominating, what's going on in China is not small. And so what we're looking at is an existential event. And these leaders, these CEOs who are awake, are realizing that they adopt these technologies, they change, or else they're going to cease to exist. And this transformation, it changes everything. It changes the way that these companies design products, the way they deliver products, the way they service customers, the way they manage their companies, the way they manage people. Everything changes. So McKinsey has estimated that this change now associated with these technology vectors that I'm talking about is resulting in a change that is 10 times faster than the Industrial Revolution at 300 times greater scale. This is 3,000 times more impact than the Industrial Revolution. Get your mind around that. I mean, remember the Industrial Revolution? This was not a small event. So then we have visionary leaders around the world like Francisco Starace at Nel okay, that is leading the world in smart energy systems. I mean, Francisco Strachey and Livio Gallo, they're completely, basically deploying the Internet of Energy across 60 million meters in 40 countries, including right now 42 million meters in Spain and Italy. They're investing, I think Livio told us yesterday, order of $6 billion in capital, and they're looking for 6.7 billion euros okay, in recurring economic benefit. What is this about? This is about safety, it's about reliability, it's about cybersecurity, okay, it's about cleaner energy. It's quite impactful. There's a woman in France by the name of Isabelle Kocher. She's a physicist. She's the CEO of a company called Engie. Engie is about a 70 billion euro integrated energy company. And she's a great visionary, and she's deploying this system that she calls Engie IoT to deliver safer energy, cleaner energy, more satisfied customers at global scale. Other organizations, and we look at Boeing, we look at Honeywell, we look at Darius Adamczyk at Honeywell, Bosch. There are leaders out there, and they're leading the pack, and everybody else is soon to follow. This is happening in banking, financial services, government, travel, transportation, telecommunications. These are some of the leaders in the area. Royal Dutch Shell, Airbus, Enel, Engie, CAT, Cisco, Honeywell. And they're massively adopting these technologies to change the way, again, they design products, deliver products, service customers, and what have you. Now, there are implications to this there are implications for the academy. And there are some, serious issues associated with this that need to be addressed. It's not all good. It's also not stoppable. Okay, who was it? David Ludd, okay, who was trying to stop the Jacquard loom, okay, on the steam engine, okay, I think this is where the name Luddite came from. Okay, the steam engine was not going to be stopped. Okay, the Jacquard loom was not going to be stopped. Okay, information technology is not going to be stopped. We might try to regulate it for a little while, but it is unstoppable, and this has some very important implications for what we need to do. I think we have the ascendancy of data science, okay, and the ascendancy of the knowledge worker. Okay, now this creates a great opportunity for leaders like Politecnico Torino to provide this human capital necessary to drive this revolution in Italy, in Europe, and around the world. But it also creates, a large percentage of the workforce that might be unemployable. I mean, this idea that, in the future, no matter what, I assure you, in 10 years, there will not be taxi drivers in New York City, no matter what the New York City Council does. And the idea that we're going to train these taxi drivers to be data scientists is ludicrous. It's not going to happen. So it has some very important issues for training, for education, for the future of work. There's going to be massive, job dislocation associated with this technology trend. And, and I know we're very sensitive to privacy in Europe, and we're very sensitive to privacy in the United States. But the reality of the situation is privacy is a thing of the past. And I remember Scott McNeely used to say this. Scott, you might recall that Scott was the CEO of Sun Microsystems. And, I think this is true. And these are all very troubling issues. They're important issues, and we need to rely on the leadership of places like Politecnico di Torino, University of California at Berkeley, MIT, University of Tokyo, and others to address these very, very important problems that we're going to have to grapple with going forward. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my great honor to be here.
Thank you, Tom. And now, in order to read the motivation for awarding the laurea ad honorem to Professor Shankar Sastry, I invite to the podium Professor Andrea Bianco. He's the head of the Department of Electronics and Telecommunications. Please.
Thank you. Conferment of the honorary degree laurea ad honorem in Telecommunication Engineering, Ingegneria delle Telecomunicazioni, to Professor Shankar Sastry for his extraordinary research achievements in the field of nonlinear and adaptive control, autonomous robotic systems, and cyber physical systems, and for his leading contribution to the studies of societal impact of information technologies. As Dean of the College of Engineering of UC Berkeley and President of CITRIS, Information Technology in the Interest of Society.
Now I will invite to the podium Professor Claudio Giovanni De Martini in order to read the motivation for the laurea ad honorem on Dr. Thomas Siebel. Professor Claudio Giovanni De Martini is the head of the Department of Control and Computer Engineering.
Conferment of the honorary degree laurea ad honorem in Computer Engineering, Ingegneria Informatica, on Mr. Thomas Siebel for his recognized worldwide leadership in advanced information technologies as founder and CEO of Siebel Systems and C3 IoT, and for his extraordinary contribution to the development of science and technologies, in particular in advanced analytics and IoT, through the Siebel Foundation, the Siebel Energy Institute, and the Siebel Scholar Program.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, before formally conferring the two honorary degrees, I've been asked by our Minister of Education, University and Research, Honorable Valeria Fedeli, to read a short message that was written in Italian and that we translated in English for our guest. Dear Rector, dear Mr. Thomas Siebel, dear Professor Shankar Sastry, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to express all my gratitude for being invited to the ceremony of conferment of the honorary degrees laurea ad honorem in Telecommunications Engineering on Professor Shankar Sastry and in Computer Engineering on Dr. Thomas Siebel. I am deeply sorry for not being able to participate and join you at the ceremony. Unfortunately, due to political and government commitments, I was not able to reach Torino in time. My sincere apologies to the Rector, to Dr. Siebel, and Professor Sastry. On behalf of the Ministry of Education, University and Research, which I am honored to represent, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to Politecnico di Torino for its initiative of conferring these honorary degrees on Professor Shankar Sastry and Dr. Thomas Siebel. It's undoubtedly a particularly important moment, not only for Politecnico, but also for the other Italian universities. It was without any hesitation that we authorized the two conferments of honorary degrees in accordance with the Italian law, since I strongly believe that they can bring high prestige to the Italian education and research systems. The motivations which have been expressed by the department and by Politecnico to propose them as ideal candidates for the honorary degrees conferment have been clearly explained by Professor Andrea Bianco, head of the Department of Electronics and Telecommunications, and by Professor Claudio Giovanni De Martini, head of the Department of Control and Computer Engineering. As you heard during the ceremony, Professor Sastry chaired and is in charge of high prestige positions, such as being the Dean of Engineering at the University of California, Berkeley, and the Faculty Director of the Bloom Center for Developing Economies. He has co-authored over 500 technical papers and 10 books, and he is currently on the scientific advisory of the National Science Foundation. He received a huge number of honors and awards by prestigious organizations in the US and all over the world. Cooperation with United Nations Secretary General's Scientific Advisory Board is important to be cited as well. From here, a constant attention towards developing countries which must benefit from the important discoveries and application of science in general and of telecommunication engineering in particular is deeply perceived. If I may say, this is a specific connotation of the scientific activity which is worth being underlined. The idea that scientific progress is considered to be a laudable purpose to the benefit of needs and lacks of human society. While reading Mr. Siebel's CV, the attention is immediately focused on his strongly interdisciplinary education, which shows that the cultural enrichment and the professional success comes from the deep intermingling of humanistic and scientific disciplines. In this regard, Mr. Siebel received a Bachelor of Arts in History, an MBA, and a Master of Science in Computer Science. This interdisciplinary profile is particularly surprising since it represents a very simple idea, but not so appreciated, that it can be expected that culture and knowledge have not to be seen detached and separate, but productive and outstanding in their whole. Mr. Siebel is the chairman and chief executive officer of C3 IoT, which aims at enabling companies to design, develop, deploy, provision, and operate large-scale IoT applications. C3 IoT applies the power of big data, advanced analytics, which are deeply changing and improving enterprise marketing actions and social networking for some aspects. Again, positivity and the importance of an interdisciplinary education turn to be fundamental. Mr. Siebel is also the founder and chairman of the Thomas and Siebel Foundation, established in 1996, with the aim of funding projects to support energy solutions, educational and research programs, public health, also to the benefit of the homeless and underprivileged of our society. I conclude my message by expressing again my enthusiasm to share with all of you such an important moment for Politecnico di Torino as well as for the whole Italian university and research system. Dr. Siebel, Professor Sastry, I wish you all the best. Valeria Fedeli. Now it's the formal moment to confer, in name of the Italian law, the 2 honorary degrees. So, first of all, I would like to invite Professor Shankar Sastry. In name of the Italian law, in accordance with the Article 169 of the Royal Decree of August 31st, 1933, number 1592, in accordance with the resolution of July 7, 2017, issued by the Board of the Department of Electronics and Telecommunication Engineering, which proposed the conferment of the honorary degree in telecommunication engineering on Professor Sosale Shankar Sastry. Considering the approval of this resolution by the Italian Ministry of Education, Universities and Research, for the above-mentioned motivation, I confer on Professor Sosale Shankar Sastry, born on May 15, 1956, in the city of Hyderabad, India. I confer the honorary degree, laurea ad honorem, in telecommunications engineering. Congratulations. Now, I would like to invite here Mr. Thomas Siebel. So again, in name of the Italian law, in accordance with the Article 169 of the Royal Decree of August 31st, 1933, number 1592, in accordance with the resolution of July 11, 2017, issued by the Board of the Department of Control and Computer Engineering, which proposed the conferment of the honorary degree in computer engineering on Dr. Thomas Michael Siebel. Considering the approval of this resolution by the Italian Ministry of Education, University and Research, for the above-mentioned motivation, I confer to Mr. Thomas Michael Siebel, born on November 20, 1952, in Chicago, USA, I confer the honorary degree, laurea ad honorem, in computer engineering. Then I would like to invite again here our 2 graduates of the Politecnico di Torino, because we have a small present for them. You know, we are here in this beautiful castle that of the 16th century, but of course we are also facing new technology. So here we have a small model of our castle that has been printed by additive manufacturing in the lab that you visited yesterday. So this is a 3D printing model of the castle with the techniques that yesterday we showed you. I would like to thank also the 2 responsible, Professor Paolo Fine and Professor Luca Giuliano of our additive lab, for producing this nice model. So Be careful because this is for you, and this is for you. But in addition to that, we also have old press, so this is the old way of doing of the Valentino Castle for you. So, thank you again. It's really an honor for us that you are among the graduates of the Politecnico di Torino. Thank you again for being here.